Welcome to our podcast, Regulation Matters, a Clear Conversation. Once again, I'm your host, Lyon Dempsey. I'm currently the Chief Compliance Officer with Riccobeni Associates Family Dentistry with practices in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. I've also been a board member and past president of CLEAR. As many of you are aware, the Council on Licensure Enforcement and Regulation, or CLEAR, is an association of individuals, agencies, and organizations that comprise the international community of professional and occupational regulation. This podcast is a chance for you to hear about important topics in our regulatory community. Now, this month, we're doing a two-part series with CLEAR's premier education partner, Tyler Technologies. We'll be discussing how regulatory organizations can leverage technology to improve regulatory efficiency and effectiveness. To explore this topic, we're joined by Ken Anderson, Chief Information Officer at the Arkansas Department of Labor and Licensing, and Christy Williams, General Manager for Tyler Technologies, Arkansas's business unit. We're glad to have both of you with us today. To start, could each of you kind of introduce yourself and briefly describe your role? And let's start with you, Christy.
Sure. Hey, everybody. My name is Christy Williams. I am the general manager for the Tyler, Arkansas team. So we're the local Arkansas business unit of Tyler Technologies. And I run a team of about 38 technologists, designers, developers, marketing specialists who work solely for the state of Arkansas. So we have deployed over 700 digital services in the state, working at the state level with the governor and her cabinet, and then also with local government offices as well. We've been in business here for over 28 years. I've been in this role for about 11 years in different capacities, and came to this company from a brief stint in state government, where I served as the communications director for the Arkansas Office of Health Information Technology.
Great. Well, welcome. And we're excited to talk to you today. And Ken, could you maybe give our listeners a little information about your role? I wonder if you could maybe specifically touch on a few things, like how has your role changed with the transformation of Arkansas state government agencies from 65 different divisions into 15 agencies? And how has inheriting 21 disparate agencies impacted, how you conduct your regulatory processes?
Yes, hello, Ken Anderson. I'm Chief Information Officer for the Arkansas Department of Labor and Licensing. Since taking over as Chief Information Officer, we inherited the 21 different agencies and rolled them up into one entity here within the cabinet of the Labor and Licensing. My role is to try and keep all of the technology as far as licensing, infrastructure, for all of these agencies. We wanted to standardize it. So they were all different when we first took them on. And our number one goal was to standardize that process with them. So my role has been guiding that to try and develop the vision and the direction that we wanted to go with the products and the processes to take these agencies into one direction instead of 21 different directions.
It's great to speak with you, Ken, and I'm glad that you're here as well. So let's just jump right into this discussion. Now, state regulatory agencies face the dual challenge of streamlining interactions with licensees and improving online public engagement, specifically through digital platforms. This is not something that's really new. But Ken, how is your agency leveraging technology to improve regulatory efficiency and service delivery while increasing public engagement?
That has been the challenge because our licensee base runs the gamut. You have the older population that is still used to doing face-to-face transactions, and then you have the younger generation that is used to doing it with a phone, and they want that technology. So we have to do a balancing act, and we've been able to do that through our Tyler regulatory products that we've chosen to go with here at the cabinet, because it's allowed the flexibility to do both. We can educate the older population in how to use the product. We've done that with quite a few of them with face-to-face sessions. As they come into the office, we teach them the new product, of how to do it. And then the next time that the renewal comes up for their license, or maybe they need to apply for a new one, they're familiar with this product. They're familiar with how to go about renewing and how to apply online instead of doing it face to face. On the other hand, our younger generation that's used to using it on the phone, they've embraced it right from the very beginning. And we've sort of leveraged them to help with people that are around them, showing them how they did it, and they help to educate some of the older population. So it's been a balancing act, but the product has been flexible that we've chosen to use. We're able to do it both ways. We can handle the payment processing through electronic transactions, through ACH, or even through a paper check with the method that we're using.
Now, many states are reevaluating licensure frameworks. So I guess what modernization efforts are underway in Arkansas, and kind of what's driving those things? Let's start with your perspective, Christy.
Yeah, so there's a big, broad effort happening across the country right now where states across the nation are really actively reevaluating their regulatory licensure frameworks, mostly in response to workforce demands, economic mobility concerns, and we're seeing a lot of public policy priorities. So the overall trend we're seeing in the nation right now is toward greater flexibility, transparency, mobility, and workforce inclusion, with a big emphasis on protecting the health and welfare of the public without necessarily restricting employment for professional licensees. So a lot of states are taking different approaches to this, but most really share the goal of aligning licensure with today's market realities. But some of what we're seeing in Arkansas, there's really two big things that are happening. And Ken will touch heavily on this, but digital transformation is huge in the state of Arkansas. There are dozens of agencies responsible for licensing in the state for regulatory licensing, and they're spread across multiple different departments. So right now, and really for the past 4 years, there's been an effort going on with transformation to consolidate the statutory responsibility for a lot of those licensing boards and commissions. Many of them have been centralized under the Department of Labor and Licensing, so they're responsible now for about 24 of those entities. At the same time, each of these individual boards and commissions kind of have their own way of handling the process for applying for a license, for renewing, for reporting your CEUs to that entity, and to help streamline processes both for the administrators and then as well as for the end user. There's a big effort right now to standardize process. So the Information Network of Arkansas is a governing board in the state that's responsible really for driving the citizen experience of government, and they've spearheaded an enterprise licensing initiative in the state. Really, their vision was to have a single entry point for professional licensing applications and renewals through one system. Then also on the backside, have a single system for all these disparate agencies across the state to use, and have a similar repeatable process that could streamline operations across the state. So the Department of Labor and Licensing has really been a leader in this area, and Ken and his team have driven a lot of efficiency by using a statewide system. And other agencies are starting to catch on to that as well, and are going in that direction. But really, digital transformation through using a similar set or the same set of tooling and processes across the state and across divisions has been big. Additionally, through that, we're seeing more consolidation of licensing boards and commissions. So we recently got out of a legislative session that I believe consolidated several individual entities into one commission. So we're seeing a reduction in the number of regulatory bodies to help further streamline the processes. So those are just two things that are happening in the state, digital transformation, and then also taking a look at the administrative side of things and how can the state further streamline the boards and commissions that folks need to work with.
I agree. Those are definitely some themes Clear is hearing about from a lot of jurisdictions. Now, Ken, how about your perspective in Arkansas? What modernization efforts are underway and what is driving them?
Let me start with what's driving them. It's the demand for convenience from our licensee base or our constituents, combined with a demand for transparency. They want to know, what is their tax dollars paying for? What are we doing to be better stewards of the money that we receive through the taxpayers? We put it out there that this is the online platform. It's driving efficiency. We're giving you the opportunity to do your business as it relates to your occupational license 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. You're no longer confined to when the office is open, whether that be 8 to 5 or 7:30 to 4:30. We are allowing our licensee base to do their business when it's convenient for them. At the same time, we're creating efficiencies because we're not having to handle so much paper. It's allowing us to do more with less. And that's what's been driving the technology towards trying to do everything online in our agency.
Well, Ken, what cost or time-saving efficiencies has the department seen since it began implementing Tyler's regulatory solutions?
This has been tremendous. We did a study when we first went in to our electrical division, and we were calculating the amount of time that the employees were spending printing licenses, stuffing them into the envelopes, running the postage through for those, and then handling the phone calls for all the paper transactions that you typically would get. And sometimes those phone calls involve things that are outside of our control, such as when something's put in the mail, why hasn't it gotten to me yet? And we're not in control of that mail. The average time spent per day on dealing with these type of work items was 5.5 hours. Once we went into Tyler Regulatory Products and we no longer were mailing and stuffing licenses and we no longer were having to go through the mail system, we saw a 70% reduction in that time frame. That time that they were spending doing the stuffing and doing the mailing, we just transitioned that over to better customer service on the phone. They gained productive time educating people how to use the product. And then in turn, they were able to provide better service and quicker turnaround time. In electricians alone, it was taking an average of 90 days for a person to receive their license from the time they applied for an exam until the time the license actually was issued and in their hands. That was reduced to 5 days once we went to Tyler's regulatory solution. The only time we were waiting after we went to this was the time it took for the applicant to be accepted to take the test and then to receive their exam scores. The turnaround, once we had the exam scores back, was just a matter of 1 day, and they had their license in their hand. That's a tremendous thing in a lot of areas, because if you think about if a person shrinks that window down from the 90 days that it was taking to the 5 days, that's 85 extra days that they're allowed to work in the occupation of what they chose. So they're making a living, they're making money for their family. It just has become a much more efficient process doing it electronically and digitally versus the old-fashioned paper method. And I'd like to also, as I'm talking about some of the efficiency gains that we made time-wise, we also saved money that first year within electrical. They increased the fund balance that they were using by 50% in just the mail savings alone. So that better used the taxpayers' dollars to be able to leverage that money in a different manner than what they were spending on postage and mailing. They also, through using that, had 400,000 sheets of paper the first year that were saved. That's a tremendous environmental savings that we did that first year alone. Now, we multiply that across, we're in 13 entities now, so that's growing every year of paper that we're saving and not having to use. And we're about to launch our 14th entity in that. And in that 14th entity, there are a licensee base of 56,000 licensees. So you can start to extrapolate those figures out as to what this means the further we get with this project.
Those are definitely some great gains in efficiency and some wonderful benefits all around for staff, licensees, and the public. This is great to hear. Now, we'll be back with my conversation with Ken and Christy in just a moment. But first, Claire would like to thank our podcast episode sponsor. Today's episode is sponsored by Tyler Technologies, Clear's 2024-25 premier education partner. Workers thrive when regulatory processes work. Tyler Technology empowers agencies to streamline licensing, enforcement, inspections, and payments. Learn more at tylertech.com/regulatory. Thanks again to Tyler Technologies for their support. And now back to my conversation with Ken and Christy. All right, so in February of last year, Clear conducted an online survey in partnership with Tyler Technology of more than 7,000 Clear stakeholders representing more than 400 members. Now, insights from that survey revealed that while most organizations provide some online services predominantly through like user portals and mobile access through browsers, fewer offer public-facing mobile apps, while some provide no online services at all. So how important is online and mobile access for state regulatory processes, both for the field worker and the public?
I'll jump in and answer that from our perspective. It is of the highest importance and from both sides of the equation. Let's look at the licensee or the constituent. They want to be able to interface, as I alluded to earlier, at their convenience. That's what everything is driving the workforce today. They're as busy as we are at our jobs, so they want to be able to do their business with us on their terms. And that might be at midnight. That might be when they get off of their shift at that time of the night. So having that online presence and being able to conduct business from that side is of the utmost importance. And if I flip the hat over to our side on the field inspector, I'm just going to use an example of an amusement ride inspector for this scenario. They travel the state and they follow the amusement ride companies wherever they set up. It's vitally important that our inspectors have that online mechanism that they can be inspecting a ride in Searcy, Arkansas, for example, and later or the next day that ride has moved up to Fayetteville and reset, and there's a different inspector up there. They have to have that information in hand and readily available to see what the inspector in Searcy saw, so that we don't repeat mistakes if there were flaws in the setup of that ride. It better protects our citizens when we have an online mechanism for our inspectors to be able to review and see that data of what's happening in another part of the state as it moves into their area. So we could not really do our business without that online mobile ability. And Christy, if you've got anything to add to that, I'd be happy to hear what your thoughts are.
Sure. Yeah, I think Ken is spot on. I mean, having online access to applications and renewals is absolutely critical. And I think the mobile piece is definitely we're seeing more critical for the field worker, just to have that mobility, the ability to take that technology with them, be able to conduct inspections or enter information offline in the state of Arkansas is big. We don't have the best network of internet connectivity. So kind of building that into your solutions is critical. Being able to connect, save data and connect it when you are connected to the internet through a mobile device is huge. We're seeing a lot of constituents use mobile as well, but mostly they're using desktop devices to complete those applications and renewals, typically during business hours. But there are outliers like Ken mentioned who want to have that access if they work late into the night from their mobile devices as well. One key piece I would say, a challenge that we've run into, and something that's critical for states to consider is moving from a paper process to a mobile or a digital application. And while there's a lot of folks out in the world who are tech savvy and have no problems at all using online services and really welcome those, there are folks who need a lot of help kind of navigating their way through a different process. So this is something Ken and his team do very well. They take a lot of care in the transition process, educating and communicating with their constituents about, hey, here's what we're changing. Here's how your process this cycle will be different for going in and renewing, and then being available to talk with people who maybe phone people who like to talk with another human to get help rather than relying on a chatbot or kind of stumbling through it on their own. So that's been really a key factor of success in our operations, certainly with the Department of Labor and Licensing, and transitioning from some paper-based processes and taking constituents with them and helping them along the way. They find that once folks who are really happy with the old paper way of doing things get through the first year of the digital process, they're happy with it and actually come to prefer that way. But some folks just need a little extra help kind of understanding and navigating the digital side of things.
Well, I can certainly see how change is always challenging for anybody. We've had to adopt through things, even just through COVID. So I think, if we can just keep the momentum moving forward, people will get on board and see the benefits of this digital technology. Now, licensing is often seen as both a gatekeeper as well as a gateway. All right. How are you balancing consumer protection as well as reducing unnecessary barriers to entry?
Yes, that's an accurate statement. It is both, absolutely. And the beauty of Tyler's regulatory product that we're using, it does provide the guardrails as far as being the gatekeeper. It's so flexible. We go in and we set up the business rules per the statutes and the rules of each entity within the product. That's our guardrail. But we also reduce barriers within the state because we've had several acts that have passed over the past few years to help eliminate the barriers that were preventing some of the occupational licensing. Act 137 expedited military licensures. So we're able to incorporate that within the product we use so that if you do indicate that you're part of the military, we can expedite that licensure. Act 725 that passed in 2021 provided some assistance for SNAP and TANF and poverty level license applicants to where we could waive the fee for those applications and reduce that fee barrier if that was something that would be preventing you from licensing. So we're able to incorporate those things into our process to help eliminate the barriers as well as keep those guardrails in place because you have to have certain criteria that you're meeting for the occupation you're applying for. That's always going to be there. But with this product and the way we're doing it digitally, we're able to keep the guardrails in place and not be in the way of the person trying to get a license. In fact, it helps speed the process up and guides the consumer into what they need to submit to us so that their whole process is much more enjoyable. There's not a lot of, oh, you didn't give us this, so now you're waiting another 3 to 4 days as you try to go round that up. It lets them know up front, this needs to be submitted along with the application.
Excellent. And I think you're right. Flexibility in the technology you use for these regulatory processes is definitely key. Well, this has been a great start to the conversation about the intersection of regulation and technology. So thank you, Ken and Christy, for sharing your insights with us today. And we look forward to continuing the conversation with part 2 in this series, which will be releasing as a bonus episode in 2 short weeks. For now, I want to thank our listeners for tuning in today. If you're new to the Clear podcast, please subscribe to us. You can find us on Podbean or any of your favorite podcast services. And if you've enjoyed this podcast episode, please leave a rating or comment in the app. Your reviews help us to improve our ranking and make it easier for new listeners to find us. Feel free to visit our website at www.clearhq.org for additional resources and a calendar of upcoming programs and events. Finally, I'd like to thank our Clear staff, specifically Stephanie Thompson. She's our content coordinator and editor for this program. Once again, I'm your host, Lyon Dempsey, and I hope to be speaking to you again very soon.